Welcome to another video from Dr. Lock. One of the viewers, Andrew I think it was, asked how do you key up Mul-T-Lock and how do you key up IP7. So I'm going to do a quick tutorial on that. Here is an IP7 cylinder, here is a Mul-T-Lock cylinder. When you actually pull it apart, you'll need the pull apart key, so you need to use a particular key to get the cylinder out so that you can rekey it. I've actually got one out here, so assuming that you've done that process, then you move on to this step. On the second chamber, it's always Z and 0, so Z outer and 0 inner. That's because it has this floating element, which you can see here. So as the plug rotates in the housing, it pushes up, and then it also activates this little floating section here. So that part actually floats. If I move it that way, it moves there. That floats back and around. On one side it's a circle, on the other side it's an oval shape. So what I'd normally do is I would put my key in just as normal, and I could start to pin it up, or I'd actually have the key code for it. So for this particular one here, I just have to find out which key I've just cut, and then I can start to key it up. I think it's this one here. Okay, so looking at the cuts now, I should be looking at C2Z0A1. So I use my card here, and I go to my pinning kit over here, which is quite large. Okay, bringing it back over here, and first one I'd be going C2, so I pull up a C. This is a C pin here. It's got like a mushroom type edge on there, so if you do try and manipulate it, it's going to jam. All of these pins have funky little functions like that. So C, and then I would grab a number 2 inner pin. The letter is the outer, the number is the inner. And once again, you put the little pin in the same way you would normally would, so it'll be point down. And that's the first chamber done. Then we would do Z0. That's not a Z, that's a half of a D. I'm going to keep my pinning kit pretty spot on, because these pins are expensive and I don't want to mess them up. Okay, so that Z0 combination is not working there. I think it's because one of the pins is in the wrong spot. After saying I keep it all nice and clean, one's in the wrong, two are in the wrong spot. Okay, so now we've got 2 chambers made up. Now the next cut I'm going to be looking for is going to be A1 and then D5. So I pick up an A. A lot of the time, if you're not sure, you can pick up this card, and with the notches on the side here, it can actually tell you. So that's meant to be an A, but I'm bringing it in as a Z. Maybe I picked up a Z, probably did. Okay, so that should be an A. Yep, it only just fits in there. I keep forgetting the code, 1 and D5. So this should be a 1 pin now. So in the same spot as A, I can measure it as being, same spot I can measure it as being a 1. If you can see, that only just fits in there. So that's your A, your 1, your ZA, your AA, or your A minus pin. Really you only need to worry about basically your numbers and letters. All the other ones refer to master keying and things along those lines. D5 now, D being the largest pin out of all of them. 2 types of pin on those ones. They come as a split system, so if you try and manipulate the lock, they're going to split apart and create a shear, or you can get solid ones as well. Solid ones I'm just using for this example. Okay, so that's D5. Lucky last chamber we have B3, so we're just going to grab out a B. It should be a B, and I'm going to check it on my card here. I'm happy with that. That's a B. There's not a lot of tolerance in these at all, so they're not the type of pins you file or anything. Everything is absolutely spot on and perfect. So that's B and 3. Okay, so there is, I have to pull my key to the right spot. There it is, all keyed up, if you can see it. I need to push my finger below to give the impression that all 5 make the shear line, and they will rotate in the lock. So I'm happy with that. If I push my key in too far, of course they're going to pop up. There's normally a bump stop, which is at the back of this cylinder. That allows you, when you put in the key, to actually hit the tip stop, and the key will stop in the right position. So that is how you key up Mul-T-Lock MT5 Mul-T-Lock Interactive. It's not MT5 at all. Okay, so let's move on now to where is my key gone? Move on to IP7. Now, I had a key here one moment ago. Here's one here. Okay, so Mul-T-Lock interactive. What's the difference? One has a lot more security, inner and outer pins, anti-drill, anti-bump, anti-pick, anti-everything. Coming over to your IP7. IP7 is an inline cylinder, so the pins are in line. You put 6 pins in line, as with this one you basically have five pins in total, inner and outer, one of which is for the floating element, so there's only really 4 outer and 4 inner that you need to put in each time. Sometimes you might also want to utilize the sidebar functions, where you can drop a pin into these side pins. Sorry, it's not a sidebar, they're side pins, and you can actually by putting a pin in there and putting a notch on the key. When the key goes in, it actually creates like another level of masked keying or more key combinations. So they can be left empty if you like, no big deal, but you can use them as well. So with inline, there is no side pins, there's only 6 pins across the top, and to do that we would use our standard pins, which I will show you here, hopefully you can see. So they're all color coded. You have your 1 to 10, and basically you just pick them out and you start dropping them in. Once again, your main goal is to get it to the shear line. What I mean by that is it needs to be flat across the top, not down, no divots. So when the driver pin on top, actually we call them top pins, that somebody pulled me up and says it's driver pins, and technically in America that is the correct term, and it is a better terminology than top pin. So driver pin, because it is driving, makes more sense. As you can see now, that's a little bit low, so that will get caught. So I just move up until I find the correct pin, and the driver pin won't get caught. Right there I can see it's too high, so move on over to the next one. They've all got numbers. That was a 7, this is a 6, and I'm pretty happy with a 6. So that is how you key up an IP7, IP3. Actually 90% of the inline restricted key cylinders are exactly this. Some do have another little spring element on the side, they're slightly different, but 90% they're basically inline keys, exactly the same as your standard normal key cylinder, pin tumbler lock or key cylinder, however you want to call it. You basically fill up the chambers until they reach the top, and that nothing can get caught and it's not protruding, allowing you, once you put it in your lock, when you put the key into the lock, it'll actually rotate. So there is a big difference between this one and that one. Price wise there is a big difference. They both are security keys, and yeah, that's how you key them up. Time wise, I can key these up in, let's say this takes me 60 seconds, this will probably take me 130 seconds. Sorry, about 90 seconds, about 30-50% longer, because I actually have to cross-check the pins. Even though I'm pulling them out of the pinning kit, you cross-check them, because as soon as you put it together and you twist it, if it's not right, you're not going to be able to get your cylinder open. So you do have to take a little bit more care on keying these ones up. Also, you don't have this shoulder to just slam the key in. Like I can just slam that in and I know that's good. With this one here, you don't have that tip stop, so I actually have to slide it in and then pull it back until they actually correspond, and that's to that spot where the tip spot would normally be. So they do take a little bit longer. They don't bother me none. They're both the same in my eyes as far as time wise. As far as security, there's a big difference. Personal preference, I like the Mul-T-Lock. I find it more precise. I like the quality of the parts. The IP7s and IP3, IP1, IP8, all those types, even JA, JB, they're all pretty much the same as this. There are funny shaped grooves on the key. That's the difference. The different grooves on the key, so you can't go get this design made, and that's what it is. Thanks for watching.